Thank you very much, Pastor. Who was not here this morning? Raise your hand. Okay. So I've done something a little different, as I told Pastor and some other people. I put this together probably the last 3 days because I've never done a 2-hour presentation. And what we tried to do is have a mock trial where the plaintiff, the God of the universe, versus the people of the United States of America and the church therein. So I brought facts and evidence, and we heard witness testimony. So if you weren't here this morning, that's what you missed. So we're going to pick up from there in a second. I did have a conversation with Jan a little earlier, and she sends her kindest regards and is very appreciative. And she also wanted me to tell you how lucky you are and how blessed all of you are to be in a church like this, because you are in the minority. There are very, very few churches in the United States, around the world, preaching the full entire gospel. And I want you to give thanks and let your pastor know, because he is rock solid. So always, whenever you can, give him encouragement. Thank God you have a pastor that teaches the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, the entire full counsel of God. All right, so let's pick up where we left off for those of you that weren't here. I presented facts and evidence and witness testimony that America is currently under judgment. And we heard from witnesses that testified, especially using Romans 1. And I told you this morning, if you looked at verses 21 through 32, it tells you exactly why God would judge this nation. And if you read, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can go through it and see exactly what we're doing. We're worshiping the creation rather than the Creator. All the things that God tells us not to do, we are doing. And most of them we've made laws. We've replaced God's laws with man's laws. And what happens to a nation that does that? And we read the verses about exactly what God thinks, exactly what God's going to do. The nation that does not worship God shall perish. I mean, he makes it crystal clear in his word. There's no guesswork. God takes the guesswork out of most everything, so we don't have to ask, we don't have to guess, we don't have to speculate. And then God says exactly what he's going to do. When we do these things, he gives us up. He gives us over. And we learned this morning that he gives us over to a depraved mind, where God says, enough, I have tested you. I now find you guilty. And you will not be able to discern the truth, even when the truth is right in front of your face. And you have to ask yourself, is that what we're seeing today? And then God, in the strongest language possible, says those that do such things are deserving of death. I don't think he's kidding around. It doesn't get any worse than that. And not only those who do such things, those who approve of those who do such things, those who tolerate everything listed there. Read that. That's what we're tolerating right now. It's an abomination to God and his word. So that's why factual evidence as to why this nation is under judgment right now. Then we went along and we talked about some of the things that we are doing right now to form this one world government, this one world system. Who's behind it? The World Economic Forum, what their plans are. All right, they're going to form a one world system based on collapsing the economy. They're using the pandemic as the catalyst to bring the whole world under one umbrella. That's their plan. It's been their plan. Not necessarily this pandemic, but they've been waiting for a crisis. And they've been planning this for the last 50 years. So it's a good plan. They've had plenty of time to plan it. And now they have the crisis. If you've listened to our show, Jan says, they're just waiting for this crisis. And when it hits, they're going to use it. They're going to implement this plan. They've been planning it. And aren't we watching that happen right now? The pandemic is the catalyst to bring the whole world under one umbrella, to hyperinflate the economy, to crash the economy, to dismantle capitalism. And most of all, we heard this morning that they're going to dismantle God's word. Because none of this can happen if there's a strong Christian base, and they've destroyed that through false gospels, false teachings. We saw the false prophets. Paul warned us this was going to happen, and we are the witnesses that are seeing that happen right now. And then we got into the technology part, which is going to play a key role, and that's what we're going to talk about now. And that's where we're going to pick up from here. I'm going to show you the same video that I showed you. You know that in the last days, in the tribulation, you're going to have to take a mark to buy, sell, or trade. That mark is going to symbolize your submission to the beast, the Antichrist. There's going to be a one-world system, a one-world ruler, the Antichrist, and a false prophet to oversee this one-world religion. All right, so let's look at some of the technology that if Satan doesn't use, I don't know what else he's going to use. It is here right now. It's already being developed. This couldn't have happened 20 years ago. Think about that. 20 years ago, how could the Antichrist track and trace and monitor every human being at the same time, all at once, all in real time? That has never happened before in history until right now. So let's take a look at what's being developed.
First came the credit card swipe and then the tap, and now just a wave of the hand can process a payment.
So the future just keeps coming. Let's check in with
Fast.
Jason Klein, the carport. Jason, what the mark of the beast is going on?
At a time when Elon Musk has monkeys playing Pong with their brains, the scientists are growing half-monkey, half-human embryos, and UFOs are becoming a more real phenomenon. This seems on par or even a bit subdued by comparison or contrast. Amazon is rolling out palm scanners at one of its Whole Foods stores in Seattle. The technology, called Amazon One, allows shoppers to pay for their purchases by holding their hands above a scanner. Before you can use it, you have to give the company your credit card information and palm print. Amazon has been testing the system at its Amazon Go and Amazon Go grocery stores. The company plans to bring it to 8 Seattle area Whole Foods stores in the coming months.
Everyone on the planet is going to have to take a mark to buy, sell, or trade in their right hand or their forehead. This technology is already here. All right? This is probably what's going to be used, something similar to this. We learned this morning there are microchips, there's hydrogels and enzymes that they can put into your body that monitor what's going on in your body and report back to probably a phone that we all carry. And don't think for a minute that this device that we all have, that we all have to have, that we depend on, isn't monitoring and recording everything that's happening, that you do, where you go, what you do, every minute of every day. So remember Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum. What did he say this morning? Does anyone remember what he said? He testified that we're going to change everyone's physical, digital, and biological identities. How do you change that? What do you mean we're going to fuse that? How are you going to bring those together? How are you going to bring my biological identity together? All right? We all sitting here, unless you've been genetically modified, we are considered human 1.0, right? We're as God created us as we sit here, as we stand. But what they want to do is implement transhumanism. It's on their website, by the way. If you go to the WEF, look at their website, look at what they're doing, look at what they're planning, look at what they're saying. And through transhumanism, we've seen this before. The Germans did it in World War II. It never went away. It never went anywhere else. In fact, we were the ones that taught them most of the things they knew, developed, and utilized during World War I or II to persecute the Jews. And these people believe that they have the ability, through the use of modern and advanced technology, that man can improve and create a better human condition. And that's what they want to do. And it's not just placing or implanting things in our body. Oh, it gets better. Look at what they're doing right now.
Why can't we engineer humans in the same way? Well, we can engineer ourselves to be resistant to life-threatening illnesses, that is. In fact, one scientist claims that he's genetically engineered 2 babies using a revolutionary tool called Crispr. But what exactly is a Crispr baby anyway? Would you like to be 6 feet tall or never bald? The secret to traits like these lies in the 6 billion letters of your genetic code. Just like that, you can edit the human genome. But while the edits may be quick, their changes can last for centuries. Especially if you're editing the DNA in an embryo. Embryos start out with a single cell, eventually replicate into millions and then trillions more. So if you alter that initial cell first, you're manipulating the ingredients of every cell that follows later in life. And those same altered cells can be passed on from generation to generation. That's one reason why most experiments on human embryos haven't left the lab.
Well, thank God they haven't left the lab yet. Oh, wait. That's too late. That ship already set sail. If you think the Chinese, the Koreans, the Russians, and yes, even the United States hasn't gone beyond this, did you hear what the reporter said? In a time when we're combining human and monkey embryos, all right? It's not just taking an already full adult human and injecting or implanting something in them. It's taking the embryo and redesigning it to create a human being exactly how you want. Size, shape, color, intelligence. That's not coming. That's here. That's what we're doing right now to God's creation. That's what that reporter meant. They are creating human beings right now as we sit here to go out and fight. The Chinese think they're going to build an army, a fighting force of the gigantic, muscular, strong. They can manipulate DNA so they don't feel pain, so they don't feel empathy, so they can go out and kill and not feel guilty about it. They can remove those genes. They can put animal genes into a human being so that they can go out into the jungle or anywhere and eat the same things animals do. That's where we're at right now. That's what we've done to God's creation. As we sit here and speak, right? Why isn't this on the news every single night? Like anything Satan wants to get involved in, it's a slow leak. It takes time to come out. But now we're seeing the information start to come out on this. This is Dr. Dudna. She created the Crispr technique that you just saw. And you're going to listen to what she says about the technique that she co-invented. I want you to listen carefully to what she says, and then I'll tell you the results.
technology has already been used to change the DNA in the cells of mice and monkeys, other organisms as well. Chinese scientists showed recently that they could even use the CRISPR technology to change genes in human embryos. And scientists in Philadelphia showed they could use CRISPR to remove the DNA of an integrated HIV virus from infected human cells. The opportunity to do this kind of genome editing also raises various ethical issues that we have to consider, because this technology can be employed not only in adult cells, but also in the embryos of organisms, including our own species. And so together with my colleagues, I have called for a global conversation about the technology that I co-invented so that we can consider all of the ethical and societal implications of a technology like this.
And as she's been calling for this global conversation, which she's been calling for years since she developed this, the Chinese, the Russians, and yes, us, have been developed. She knows what's going on. And Pastor Billy Crone, much of this information comes from his ministry, ran into a genetic scientist on a flight. And when she started telling him what we're doing, he started researching this. And much of what you're seeing tonight is the results of the research that's being done right now. Now, her colleagues say, yeah, this technique is great. We can take out different genes of different viruses. They're working on the HIV virus, and they can remove that, and that's all good. But remember, whatever is used for good, Satan is going to flip it and use it for evil. Many of her colleagues say, although the technique she developed can be used for good, what she actually did was open up Pandora's box, and she has literally opened up the gates of hell. That's what we're doing right now. We're taking God's creation. We're taking man, created in his image, and now we're creating man in man's image. And oh, it gets better. Watch this. There's a professor, he's an Israeli professor, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari. And he said, history began when humans invented gods and will end when humans become gods. Now, his intellect is off the charts. I've listened to him several times. I mean, I don't know what his IQ is, but it's off the charts. But he's a complete secular humanist. And he spoke at the World Economic Forum a couple of years ago. And listen to what he says about the group that he's affiliated with and what could happen once this gets implemented. Listen carefully. If you have a pencil, take notes. You're not going to believe this.
So I want to talk to you today about the future of our species, and really the future of life. Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. Because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. These will be the main products of the economy, of the 21st century economy. Not textiles and vehicles and weapons, but bodies and brains and minds. Humanity will split not into classes, it will split into species, into different species. Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. There is a lot of talk these days about hacking computers and email accounts and bank accounts and mobile phones, but actually we are gaining the ability to hack human beings. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. If we don't regulate it, a tiny elite may come to control not just the future of human societies, but the shape of life forms in the future. So does the data about my DNA, my corporation or to the government or perhaps to the human collective. At present, big corporations are holding much of the data, and people are becoming worried about it. The future, not just of humanity, but the future of life itself may depend on the answer to this question. We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
We have the capability to hack bodies, minds, brains right now. And that's exactly what we're doing. And what else did he say? He warned us. He's speaking at the World Economic Forum. If we're not careful, a tiny group of elites are going to control everything. And who does our bodies, minds, and brains belong to once these are fused together in big corporations and it's downloaded here and they have access to all your personal information, not just your finances, not just your health records, but your thoughts and feelings. That's where we're at right now. And if you listened this morning to the head of the World Economic Forum, you heard Dr. Evil say that, Klaus Schwab, he told us exactly what we're doing. We're going to fuse this. Bodies, minds, brains, fusing our physical, digital, and biological identities. That's what they want to do. And who could use that during the tribulation? Who's probably going to use that during the tribulation? Because for the first time in history, never before. Now, I've always believed the rapture could happen at any moment. But right now, we are witnessing the formation of a one-world government and the technology to track and trace and monitor every human being all at once in real time. That's Jan. If you haven't heard our show, that's Pastor Billy Crone. He came out with a video series, Hybrid Super Soldiers and the Coming Genetic Apocalypse. I was meeting with him about 2 weeks after he met this genetic scientist, and he said, this is unreal. He said, I've done nothing but research this. He said, I can't stop. I'm going to make a video series. This is unbelievable. And he's telling me about this, and I'm like, wow, is that really happening? And he said, yes. He said he's researching it. Well, if you haven't seen this series, go to his website. You can go to our website, go to our store, pick this up. It is unbelievable how we have taken God's creation and defied it. So let's hear from Pastor Billy.
Picture there. Let's go for a moment here to the science angle. The whole angle is presented by the scientific community as helpful. After all, we can now create our ideal baby. It will improve society. We now can delete bad memories, and we'll explain more of that as we move along. In other words, this is playing God in the science world. It's being portrayed as a good thing, even though, as you bring out, and I think as we're going to emphasize here, it's going to bring about the destruction of the planet again.
Absolutely, and what they do is they're a master of terminology. The elitists, in different ways, they use buzzwords, code words to hide their agendas, because if they're going to come out and say, hey, we're going to radically alter all of humanity in our image, playing God the way that we wanted to come out with technology, people would freak out. What they do is they come up with terms like transhumanism, that humans need to use this technology to transcend the limits that we're experiencing and become better. They even use terms like post-human. But they're all basically terms to describe that these people really want to use
there's not going to be any true humans left. We're creating new species of human beings. And once you alter the genetic makeup of a human being, it never, ever goes back to its original form. If you listen to that video, it's passed on, it's altered. Every time our genetic makeup is being altered, there are doctors and virologists saying these vaccines will alter our genetic makeup. These globalists are not going to stop, no matter what happens, no matter who gets in office. These people are not going to stop. I believe Satan's plan is in full speed. It's full speed ahead. It's not going to stop. These people are possessed and obsessed with merging man, animals, and artificial intelligence. And we haven't even discussed artificial intelligence. Did I mention that we can create a human being with both functioning sex organs? Gives a whole new meaning to transgender, doesn't it? They believe they can change the physical, intellectual, and psychological capabilities beyond what any human being can naturally accomplish. And they also believe, and they're telling us already, we have the capability where man can live for a few hundred years, and in the future and soon, they'll be able to live forever, for eternity. How do we know we're in the last days? Are we in the last moments of the church age? What did God say was going to happen? What did he say the world was going to be like? How long is a righteous, just God going to allow what we're seeing to continue? All of his laws being changed. We've already changed every single one of his plants and animals. And now we're taking the image, man, that was created by him in his image, and changing that. How long is a righteous, just God going to allow this to happen? Well, Daniel was told by an angel that all these things were going to be happening. And he couldn't believe it. And he's like, when is this going to happen? And the angel told him, it's not for you to know right now. So just roll up the words and seal the book until the end of time. What was the world going to look like? He said there's going to be people that are going to be going about to and fro everywhere quickly. All right? What used to take days, weeks, months to go just a short distance, we can now go anywhere on the planet in a few short hours. So people are going to be going to and fro. And knowledge is going to increase exponentially. Knowledge right now through AI doubles every 11 to 12 hours. Doubles. If it keeps going, it's going to go beyond what the Bible says. We are there right now. Artificial intelligence is taking over everything right now. And I have to warn you, you have to look at your own job, because it could be in grave danger, because artificial intelligence is set up to take over for most jobs right now. All right? That's what it's set up for. Why would they do that? Well, a machine or a robot doesn't need vacation, doesn't need sick time, doesn't need a lunch break, doesn't call in sick, is there every day, 24/7, working at thousands of times the speed and accuracy that a human being can. It's predicted that within the next few years, artificial intelligence will take over at least half of the jobs in America, around the world, in fact. That's what's happening right now. Elon Musk knows this. He knows that artificial intelligence is going to take over, and he's warning us, and he's involved in it. He's saying if man's brain will not be able to keep up with artificial intelligence, and if we're not careful, Everything's run by it. Everything we're doing right now, including the military, is being run by artificial intelligence. What happens when it decides to launch some missiles, when it realizes that they have the upper hand and man won't be able to stop it? That's what he's afraid of. So he's developed a brain implant that can process information 20 times faster. It's a simple implant. It goes into your brain. It connects to your nerves and neurons. And you can process information. Everything that's coming at you, you can process it just like this. You can even download information on this. How about that? Want to learn a new language? Presto, download it. I know Spanish. How cool is that? But what else can they download into that chip? See, whatever's used for good is always turned around and used for evil. So as we wrap this trial up, what we have seen and what we are witnessing, if you haven't been paying attention for the last, well, since the days of Babylon, but specifically for the last 50 years, these people have been gathering together on numerous occasions to plan your future and mine. And that's what they're doing. They have a well thought out, well funded. They have the power, they have the influence, they have the backing, social media, governments from all over the world. If you weren't here this morning, we were the last stand to stop this, and this administration is full on with it. In fact, their motto was Build Back Better. Well, where did they get that from? They got that from the World Economic Forum. That was their motto. We are going full speed ahead with this. Don't think that this won't or can't happen, because it's already here. Let's close out here. One more from Pastor Jack Hibbs, Calvary Chapel.
Should we not be like that with faith? God has never let you down. You may have misunderstood what God has done. That's most often our situation. But He's never let you down. Never. And you can build a foundation of faith on what's going on in the current world around us. The world, in the next couple of months, the world will be discussing in Davos the global economic world problem. The world is in an unprecedented problem right now. The world. And they're going to be discussing the global economic community. If you know Bible prophecy, you're saying, oh, wow, I'm going to be watching this. Why? Because we're going to watch everything through the lens of what we know from the Bible. Does any of this stuff in the news apply to my current situation? And of course, you can begin to see that. Religious freedoms and liberties and the direction of our nation and world. All of these things, Jesus said, when you see these things beginning to come to pass, when you can see the little bit of the sun peeking up on the eastern sky, you know that my coming is at the door.
Is he correct? Are we seeing the convergence? Not just a few, we've seen signs throughout history. Bad things have happened throughout our history since we've all been alive. But everything that Christ said would happen right before he takes his church is converging all at once. It's a hard message to give, and I know it's hard to hear because most of us want to get back, if you're my age, to what we thought was a normal life. But Christ told us there was going to be that generation that sees what we're seeing right now. And we have to ask ourselves, are we that generation? And based on facts and evidence and witness testimony today, but more importantly, God's Word. Are we there right now? Are we about to hear that trumpet? In that twinkling of the eye, when we're caught up and we're with Christ for eternity, that's our hope. That's what we have to look forward to. That's the message of the gospel. We have a responsibility to go out and preach the gospel across the world. So, before we start questions and answers, I believe that we're kind of sailing. Yeah, we talked about the big tsunami that's coming, the coming tsunami. And I really think that we're sailing along right now on the global SS Titanic. And we've struck the iceberg. And if you're here today and you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're good. You're in the lifeboat. You're saved. But how much more room is there in that lifeboat? That's our job. Pray that God brings you multitudes of people that need to know Jesus Christ. Tell them what a relationship with Him means now and for eternity. Reach out, take someone, get them in the lifeboat, and be saved.